Hello and welcome once again to Talking Pictures Podcast. I'm your host David and joined with me as always my co-host Brian. Brian, how are you today?
I'm going to take you back, David.
Yes, we are here for not a regular episode, not a regularly scheduled episode. We're going to be doing a look back at. We did this last year. We did School of Rock and we did Mad Max Fury Road. But we're going to do one that both of us have been wanting to do now for a long time.
A 5-star rating movie.
A 5-star film. Controversial, I think, that it's 5 stars. I think that for a lot of people, it can be divisive.
People can be wrong.
Not us, though. We are correct. We are going to be talking about 2013's Man of Steel.
What a class name for a Superman movie.
It's the first Superman film that I saw in cinemas.
Samesies.
And it was one of the first movies that I really remember, like, looking forward to. Do you know, like, it was one of the first films that, even though I was, like, 2012, so I would have been like maybe 15 or 16 at the time.
Hot after The Dark Knight Rises.
After The Dark Knight Rises, I was like looking for promotional pieces of information on it. Like
also,
waiting for the teaser, waiting for promotional pics. Like I remember that first image of Henry Cavill, you know, like in the bank.
Yeah.
That was like the first image that was released and I was like, oh my god, this looks so cool. Like it was the first time I was really invested in like a film coming out, you know?
Really?
Yeah, well it was the first one I really remember being highly invested of when is it coming.
That's interesting. Nothing for me.
Nothing at all.
The first teaser I saw was a very short one, very obscure. Didn't reveal until the very end after a series of shots of a nomad Clark Kent going around feeling down on the dumps. And then at the end of the teaser you see a very vastly wide shot of the sky and this little figure flying upwards.
Going supersonic
Superman. And I saw that teaser on Extravision DVD I rented.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't see it on national broadcast, didn't see it in a cinema, didn't see it online. And yes, not only fresh off of watching, I think, now depending on when the teaser was released, but in around the time of The Dark Knight Rises and Avengers Assembled, right? You know, the birth of the population of superhero movies, defining its genre. So it's good that Man of Steel is still a youth in that growth. But I was not looking forward to this movie only because I didn't think to look forward to it.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest. This was before any movie in the DC was established in its own universe. This is just a new Superman movie called Man of Steel, maintaining its unique title from, you know, copying a, like how many Batman movies do we have and it says Batman, whether it says Batman or The Batman or Batman Returns or The Dark Knight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whereas now with the upcoming James Gunn Superman, where it was originally called Superman Legacy, great, it has its own defining title, but now it's just called Superman. So now it's okay, copy or paste what you may, it will be its own movie. But it's nice that Man of Steel, it's a very strong title.
I think they took a page out of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
That book, you know, that was the kind of the way that they were moving in that time period. Like, don't forget, this was, like you said, 2013, so it's right after those, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. It's the beginning of a new phase for DC as a studio. And so going with Man of Steel, because...
Perhaps it was, but with Zack Snyder at the helm, very much an auteur in his own right. I think it started off with him, I could be wrong, shoot me, but it started off, don't shoot me, it could have just started off with him wanting to tell this beautiful story and with the potential to follow along, because there's always potential. Everyone wants a sequel, everyone wants a second season. So I saw this movie in Sydney, Australia in 2013. I think I saw it with my sisters and the father, and I was called crazy for going back on my own a week and a half later to see it by myself again.
Really?
Yeah.
That was how much you enjoyed it. You knew, I want to see this again.
I was frozen in my seat. Glued eyes towards the screen, mesmerised by everything this movie had to offer. Not only is this what Superman would be in our day and age, you know, there's no gosh golly, I'll save that kitten from that tree. None of that. No, and I think because people didn't get that type of Superman, they'll never experience not having that Superman with Henry Cavill. Therefore, they'll be stuck with what we did get. As quickly said, a dark, brooding, dire, depressing Superman, existential crisis. Because they're stuck with that, and they can say that all we want. I love this Superman.
Yeah.
They essentially jump too quick on the train to claim that it's not my Superman. And I refer to what I said earlier. People can be wrong.
It is very far and away from, like you said, that kind of
gosh googly gosh darn it, ma'am.
Yeah, that interpretation of Superman. And
I'll help you with your passport.
That aspect of it will turn people off of it. But what I actually really enjoy about this interpretation is the groundedness of it. That even though we have a man coming from a distant galaxy, a different planet, it does really feel like if all of a sudden aliens came to this world, and it just feels so grounded and realistic, and every aspect of it, it just doesn't feel like a typical comic book movie or like from the pages of a comic book. It really does feel like just this the real world that we inhabit has a Superman.
If anything, this movie suffers from the fact that it's a comic book adaptation. It's a superhero movie. It's about Superman, and with all those layers on top of this truly grounded existential crisis of a movie led by an alien raised as a human, and only discovering that when he's a teenager, raised by humans. Those flashback scenes really were necessary in this movie. And I do like this. Why would you want something that we have not gotten since the 70s in the Christopher Reeve Superman? Because that's when we last got those type of movies. 70s, 80s, whatever. But the more we got, the less they got good. So I stand uncorrected. The 70s. That's when we last got those, gosh golly ma'am, I'll help you find your...
Take your cat out of a tree. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say something along the lines, I'll help you find your glasses. But why were people wanting a Superman that we've not got in like 40, 50 years? And just because that's what something that, it could be like, it's probably one of those situations where the emptiest brain speaks the loudest, shouts the loudest, you know what I mean? Angry fans who just want what they want, probably don't want black people or women in leading roles either. They could probably be one of them as well, haters.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, where that there are certain people that want something to be in its absolutely most pure form.
Yes.
Of this is how it's always existed, so this is how it has to exist.
As opposed to a light Batman.
Yeah, like that there's no room to expand or interpret things in a different way or just take a different spin on things. I that's where I assume that you're coming from with that. Yeah. Because I would find myself in the camp of, I love this interpretation of Superman, but I can't wait to see James Gunn's interpretation of Superman, where it is back to that kind of gosh golly gee Superman who's saving cats from trees and saving a dog from a burning car or something like that. I'm looking forward to seeing that also.
Yeah.
So you can have the best of both worlds, but you don't have to decry that one is better than the other.
Yeah.
Or that one isn't valid because of the other.
And I think it'll just come down to which movie do you prefer more.
Yeah, it comes down to personal taste.
And you can like both. You don't have to pick either or. If anything, it's more competitive. That I always thought it was quick to compare the likes of James Gunn and Zack Snyder because they have their own styles, but they can work together, but they can also conflict. But it's interesting they'll both have done a Superman movie. So I think with that out of the way, I would really like to get into the story. And by extension, everything else.
Yeah. So the film starts on Krypton, which is the most time we've ever spent on Krypton. Previously, in the 70s movies, it was very much like taking place in one room, and it's kind of like this crystal fortress, kind of like how his Fortress of Solitude is.
Yeah.
But we get to see like the vast landscapes of Krypton and how it's its own flourishing world.
Yeah.
We don't see as many people Now we see like the council and the guards and stuff like that. But
we don't see citizens or civilians or the average day working man.
No, we don't see like the civilization or the society of Krypton.
We see what we need for the sake of the story. You want to see more? Make a TV show.
Yeah, we're like diving right into it, and you're like
the birth of Superman.
The birth of Superman.
And we're already drawn into it straight away. The Krypton is dying.
Krypton is dying. Yeah, it's a matter of time. This is what's going on, and then we're introduced to the villain of Michael Shannon's General Zod. I think he is the perfect General Zod. I think I really actually like his interpretation of Zod more than Terrence Stamp's.
Is there a point in comparing?
No, no.
Like I understand maybe why you would compare the likes of Christopher Reeve to Henry Cavill. Mm-hmm. But really, is there a point in comparing? Maybe if you watched the original Superman when you grew up with it, the time where you will believe a man can fly. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm biased just because Man of Steel is my generation of Superman, so I'm automatically gonna say it. Yeah. Not only is Michael Shannon the best medium in that of General Zod, he gave the best performance in this movie.
I think so too. I really do genuinely believe that he believes every word he's saying. The whole aspect that Zack Snyder brings to this, where everyone is assigned a role at birth on Krypton. Yeah. And everyone, like, that there's no natural births anymore. Everyone is born to fulfill a
predetermining their destiny.
Exactly, yeah. You're born for this specific role, and he was born to be the general and to preserve the existence of Krypton. So because of that, everything he does going forward is for, in his mind, the greater good. Yeah. And for the existence of his planet, which is like, so, like, he's not doing these things for villainy sake. He is a good bad guy.
That's funny, because now that you say it, Ash, I understand why, after the destruction of Krypton, why he's doing everything he does. Mm-hmm. But when I think about it, it's the same reason why he's done a mutiny. He's taken power of the council. Yeah. Actually, yeah, that sticks, that lands, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. They've depleted Krypton's resources. They've drilled through the planet. Yeah. It's going to die. He needs to take over to ensure the perseverance of the society.
And I believe that he is trying to do something, but he might not have a concrete plan yet. Mm-hmm. Whereas his friend, often adversary, Russell Crowe as Jor-El, they were friends. Mm. And he walks in and, join me, help me save the species. We've only seen these characters for a couple of seconds, and it's already breaking your heart a little that there's a bit of a friendship being broken.
There's a respect there. It's like Zod knows that Jor-El is the leading scientific mind, so we are going to need you in the future of Krypton,
Yeah, but not by force either, like at least not initially. But when he says he's going to, I'll honor the man you once were, not this monster you've become. And he's called a monster quite a lot. That must be frustrating internally.
Yeah, because you, in your heart of hearts, know like what I'm doing is right, or this is the best thing. And then later on, when obviously Kal-El is shot into space and Zod loses him, it's only in the sheer frustration of losing. In his mind, this is the only chance of Krypton's survival. Flying away is when he swings around and kills Jor-El. And then that gives us just that immediate like hate for him. Like, oh, he killed Superman's dad. Like, the world is ending, and yet still he killed his dad, So he is just a great villain in terms of, we as an audience hate him for that reason, because he has killed Superman's dad. Something that Superman's not going to know. Kal-El's not going to know that unless he's told it by Zod himself. Yeah.
Which does ultimately bestow a power of advantage to Zod. Yeah. And it's interesting because we know Superman's parents are supposed to die. Mm-hmm. But it's up to Zack Snyder and how that is executed. Mm-hmm. And not in the traditional way. Jor-El doesn't fully witness the rapture, the saving grace,
knowing that his son got away.
He dies looking at the initiation of it, but he's been killed, and he doesn't get to see anything further.
It's the burden of both of his parents to not know will he make it, but more so Jor-El, because he doesn't even know if he got off planet. Yeah, it's like, I mean, Zod comes out and he's like, shoot that down, and it's only because the council come in and stop him. Does Kal-El get away?
And just goes to show how much of a power advantage Zod is in throughout the movie. And the fight he had with Jor-El, I'm okay with Jor-El winning because he's not supposed to be the scientific mind. But with the acting of Michael Shannon as Zod, when Jor-El whacks the weapon off his face and scars him, the mouth wide open, the eyes popping out of his sockets, that is an inkling of what Michael Shannon does in this movie.
And then that leaving him with the scar is feeling then the sense of Jor-El throughout the rest of the movie. Every time you see him, you know Jor-El gave you that right before you killed him. Do you know, it's he has a lingering effect over the film, like he's a ghostly presence.
Yes,
similar to later on in the film when his AI version is kind of a ghostly presence around the ship. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit ahead there.
That's okay. Just I don't mind jumping ahead for the sake of it, but I'd like to go through the motions as vaguely as in order because this is such a cinematic piece. But I want to close out Krypton by that fantastic scene. I listen to this scene in my car every now and then when I'm reminded of it, to just hear it. When they're sentenced to the Phantom Zone for 3,000
it's
light
like
years.
a couple of cycles, so I guess in their terms a couple of years. But yeah, when he says that line, it's like, you won't kill us yourself, so you'll leave us for someone else to deal with.
You're a pack of fools. Jor-El was right. Even after killing him, he still honours him. And that's some Eamon De Valera, Michael Collins shit right there. And still, you think your son is safe? I will find him. I will reclaim what you have taken from us. I will find him. I will find him. I'll not say the rest. But I wonder how much of that was either Zack Snyder or Michael Shannon. And just cue the drums, cue the beat of the score, the soundtrack. This is where I was sitting in the cinema seat back in 2013. Goosebumps. I just watching the technology of their ship being shot through a black hole, a portal to another galaxy,
to the Phantom Zone. Yeah.
And like, how? I don't know what to describe this, because here's all these Kryptonians. They're going to be killed. They're going to die, but they give these soldiers, the mutineers, a chance at survival. Just damnation.
It's because they're the council are blinded by their own hubris. They don't believe. It's kind of that whole thing of climate change. Like, we're not doing anything. It's fine. These are normal things that are happening. Like, they don't see any problem with it, so they are in their mind sentencing them to death.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, they gave them life. They gave them the opportunity to come back.
But it's also crazy as well that they're trapped. They're frozen in time, and that even though they're still in a power of, even though they're in a position of advantage and power, they're not in a way, at least for a temporary situation. But enough of that glorious opening.
So then we cut to a lot of like flashbacks, isn't it? Like a lot of Clark's past, like his childhood.
Actually, we're cutting to
is it the
Henry Cavill as Clark Kent. He's already a nomad. He's already been raised. He's already lost his father, and we are only told these through flashbacks, right? Because he, after the fishing boat and after the in the ocean, what's that? The drilling,
the oil rig
explosion, and then in the bar when he's being tested by the dickheads of humanity, hearing about the military operation down in Antarctica, was it? Or Alaska?
Alaska, I think, yeah.
And he hitches himself a heavy hand, just grunt work. And that's where we meet the majority of the characters. Not just Lois Lane, but also the Major, played by Christopher Melanie, and the scientist, played by Richard Schiff, I think. Is that his name? He's the one with the glasses.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name. I can look him up now.
Yeah, well, you look him up. I'll just progress on here, because you said earlier that everyone in Krypton, they're born with a role, with a duty to play. I believe that with all the characters here. And I feel the goosebumps throughout the movie, because not just them, the Major, who have turned out to be an after the fact Martian manhunter. He had a role to play.
It's Richard Schiff, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, it was Richard Schiff, right? Perry White, and the young woman, and Michael Kelly, who I know he's a great actor, working at the Daily Planet. They have they represent a perspective of the average folk, observing the invasion of Zod and the destruction of Metropolis. Yeah. I was about to say Metro City or... No,
Metropolis.
Right. And I like their perspective. I like spending those worthy minutes with them. And I appreciate how we are told the flashbacks of Clark in the school, and then in the school bus. And then when we got those famous scenes with him and his father, with Kevin Costner. And then later on, his death scene. You know, it's up to Zack Snyder how he wants to interpret these losses. He doesn't lose his father through a natural cause. He dies in a twister.
I will be honest with you, I actually hate that.
Do you?
Yeah, for a movie that I love so much, I hate Jonathan's death. Because I think the whole point of Jonathan's death is because he does die so naturally. It's a lesson for Clark to learn that no matter how powerful he is, he can't save everyone, and that's a lesson that he has to learn. But because he dies in the twister and he stops him from saving him,
I think it's a little bit funny calling it a twister. Maybe it's a little bit more honorary to call it a tornado.
Yeah, we'll call it a tornado. The fact that he dies in a tornado, but he stops Clark from saving him.
Because he can't let the bystanders watch him fly.
Yeah, but not... Yeah, like, it's just... The whole scene just doesn't work for me because it doesn't instill that lesson in Clark. It instills a different lesson.
It does. I would argue that...
But I think the initial lesson is better. I think it's a stronger lesson than he believed that the world wasn't ready for me. Yeah. And it's like... But there's only like 10 years in the difference. Like, it's not that much of a difference, really.
Well, that's another thing as well, because when the world do witness him, there's no choice. He has to reveal himself. And it's just a way to force it. If he revealed himself without the invasion of Zod, he would be pinned as the enemy.
I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
No. I don't know. I think it's explored later in films in some of the later films in terms of like, if you have this power, shouldn't you help everyone? But he, of course, is only one person. He's only one man. He can only do so much. But I really don't think that he would be labelled as public enemy number one. I think that we would see the good in someone that is trying to do good. You can't blame someone for trying to do their best.
Okay.
You know?
I'm not going to fight you on this only because it's not something I hold so close to my heart.
Yeah.
But I
really dislike it. I actually think it's the worst part of the movie is Jonathan. I actually really don't like Jonathan in this film. Like, I like Kevin Costner and I like his performance.
I understand that. Who doesn't like Kevin? But you actually don't like the father.
I like Jonathan in a lot of other Superman media.
In general sense, but this particular
version of Jonathan I don't like because of how much he himself is so anti-Superman. So anti-Clark of just be normal, please just be normal. Like, I know that he wants it to save Clark.
Yeah.
And just to not have him be experimented on or whatever it is, but I just think just the way he goes about it is the wrong way.
Okay, I wholeheartedly disagree with that now.
Okay.
I think what Jonathan Kent was doing was very much a grounded approach of an honest man who wanted to be a father because, you know, they obviously didn't have children. Maybe they couldn't have children, but they found a baby and they raised them as his. And so I believe because he has the powers of the god, and everything he says, just by giving an example of how the upset mother whose child almost drowned, how she was hysterical and it was an act of God, you know, how, you know, all religious and all that, and you know, she was just one example of what if the entire nation knew. And I think this is backed up by the great Laurence Fishburne as Perry White, because I believe if them two met in a bar, they'd have a great talk about parenting and philosophy and all that. Because when he says to Lois Lane, could you imagine how people would react if this is true? That is him backing up what Jonathan is doing for his son. Real wise man. You think about the wise mentor figures in this movie with Jor-El and Jonathan Kent. Perry White's one of them as well. They all just represent different factions, and I see where you're coming from, but I don't believe like when you're saying that he says just be normal, please. You know that I think that's too quick of a sum to conclude what Jonathan was trying to do for his son. I believe it's only until when it's necessary and when he's ready, because he's still a child. He still needs to figure out what he wants to do, and I think maybe it's a little bit lackluster, because when he is revealing himself to the world, it's because he's got no choice. And I think another little lackluster, but I think what I'm talking about, the fact that what's so special about Superman just because he was saved, because he was born naturally. He was conceived naturally, because he was not predetermined to be just one thing as determined by Krypton. But to me, that's a blink and you miss it. That's an afterthought. So what I'm trying to say is I accept a lot of things in this movie, but that particular approach with raising Clark Kent, it's a no duh. I think it's an obvious. I think there's no other... well, just from your example, I don't think it would have applied. But
see, I think the main thing that I come down on, like why I don't like this interpretation of him is you know, you mentioned it there, the scene where he saves the busload of kids.
Yes.
When he comes out to talk to Clark, and Clark said, well, what should I have done? Like, should I have let them all die? And he says, maybe. And you're like, but that's...
Hold on. Like, yeah, okay. No, hold on a second now. Yes, he does in fact say maybe.
I don't know, maybe, yeah.
No, he says maybe there are more important things. Like in the trailer, that's very marketed as such. What was supposed to do? Let him die? And in the trailer it says maybe. And yes, in the movie it does says maybe. But that was him saying that, but it was a continuation to finishing his sentence. Maybe he thought about saying maybe you should have let him die, but he finished that sentence after saying the word maybe by saying maybe there are more important things at stake than just these small folk, because it no doubt he was right, because here comes Zod.
But I suppose that he doesn't know Zod is coming. He doesn't know, like, for all Jonathan knows, he is the only person. He is the only one like this, you know. But that scene where he does say, like, I don't know, maybe you should have let them die. I think that kind of goes against, like, this is, yeah, maybe this is what you should have done, but is it the right thing to do? And I think that what Jonathan would instill in Clark is to always do the right thing, whether it's the best thing to do or not. It's always the right thing to do. I think that's what Superman, that's the lesson that he should be instilling in him. And I think that your example there of what Perry says, can you imagine how people would react if they saw this? I think that can come down to whether you have a pessimistic or an optimistic look upon the human race. Because I think a lot of people would look at someone doing good and think positively about that. However, other people, like Jonathan, Jonathan kind of can see the bad in people, but he's forgetting about the good in people too. So he is just assuming the worst of everyone, and not, oh, everyone will look to him, which is what Jor-El... this is why I love the movie so much, right? Because even though I hate Jonathan's interpretation, Jor-El is the mirror to that, which is that Jonathan sees Clark and his abilities, that they will see the worst in him. But Jor-El says, no, he will give them hope. He will be an idea to strive towards. He will be the best of them. He will be the thing that everyone looks to and everyone wants to be. But Jonathan sees it that everyone will look to him and everyone will hate him. So it's such a good movie. I like just making that point there. Like, I actually like Jonathan more because I've made the point. Because
you already said you don't like it. You can't. No backsies.
No, he's the foil. Like they're the opposite ends of it.
Yeah.
But I don't. I love the Jor-El interpretation and the way that he says he'll be the idea for them to strive towards. He'll be the best of the best.
Yeah.
But I just think Jonathan should be closer to that. I think that Jonathan shouldn't be that person to him. And I know it has to be because they're both the father.
Yes, but this is the story they're telling. And I think if Jonathan was leaning more towards the optimistic mindset, I think that would be a little bit boring. Where's the drama?
See, but in other interpretations, there is that thing of that Clark actually, even though he is Kryptonian and his biological father is Jor-El, he still sees Jonathan as his actual dad and his father. His adoptive parents, because of the lessons and what they've instilled in him, that he has learned from them, and they are his parents, even though they're not his biological parents. So I think that maybe if the roles were reversed, I don't know if it works with the roles reversed, but typically.
I get you now. I was in a maze a little there, but now I get you. But if they were reversed, well then you're talking about similarities between Jor-El and Zod, and you need them to be at both ends as well. You know, it's like Zod's at one end, Jor-El's at the other end, Jonathan Kent's in the middle. You know, I just love this movie so much as well.
If that had been the case where it is Zod at one end, Jor-El at the other, and Jonathan in the middle, I just feel like Jonathan is leaning more towards the Zod end than the...
Not, of course not in the destruction of
of
course
not.
But
the negative aspects of things, or
whereas Zod sees it as the useless because at some point Jor-El, the conscious, the copy of him, the ghost of him, goes from "you can't do this to the human race, my son will stop you," to then "we can coexist." That line is thrown in there in Russell Crowe's last appearance. But that's we got off on a tangent there. That was but look, I just don't like that scene. But you know, at the end of the day, right? Two things. One, I wouldn't let my father die in a tornado. I would 110,000% fly to his rescue. I don't care.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing as well of like, think about it, like there's like 10 people that are there.
Yeah.
You can explain it away.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not the situation. I just like the lesson more of that Clark can't save everyone.
Yeah.
Than choosing like you need to don't reveal yourself. You know, it's the lessons that are taught are I think there are stronger lessons and better ways to show them.
But he did say that my father died believing that the world wasn't ready, and so he's got to live by that. And maybe that's not the lesson you, as a Superman fan, would like to have, but it's the one that we got in this movie, and I accept it as is. And the other thing I want to say is that every parent is different, and you just got to do the best you can, and that's it. It's just that's parenting. So I think we should close the book on perhaps Jor-El and Jonathan Kent.
Yeah, let's talk about some others. What do you think of Lois Lane in this film?
I think she was good.
I agree. I think that she is a really good Lois Lane, a really great character, a really great investigative reporter.
I like how she's at first, let me tell your story. We can make it a whole big thing. You know, of course she gets to be the one to do it, but you know, she gets to do it the way that would be appealing to him. You know, she is very stubborn, following this mysterious figure in the middle of the storm. Because what are you doing out here? And you know, she, like the journalistic with an ego, oblivious to the dangers around her for the sake of the story, for the sake of the shot. I like how when she finally meets Clark, hears his story, she respects him, and she doesn't expose him. And I like how, as a result, with the invasion of Zod, she is in custody, forcing Superman to reveal himself to the American military. So I like,
because of her own hubris. She leaked the story. So
yeah, she played a pivotal part, and it was, now she did play a little bit of a damsel in distress, and
towards the end, but that was
a little bit here and there, and that's not a bad thing. I like that she, you know, Clark gave her the key to hide, which she then had to turn on the ghost off Jor-El in the ship that allowed her to shoot her way out, and how she was informed of how they can come up with a plan to send the mutineers, Zod and his gang, back to the Phantom Zone. Like, she played her part well. But you know, for me, I'm a supporting character type of fan. I love supporting characters, as I just said, with the likes of Zod. Well, Zod's the villain, so he's his own category. But I love supporting characters. So, you know, even with Superman, I love Superman, and I like Lois Lane, but I expect everything that comes of them. Whereas you don't know what's gonna come with the supporting characters, and that's not just a Superman movie or superhero movie. That's every movie. Every movie you think of, I'm drawn more to supporting characters, because with the little screen time you have of them, the more of an impact I feel I can entertain. And I'll give you some good examples here in this movie. I got some great examples for this movie towards the end. Now,
well, you can if you want to, while we're on the topic.
Well, we're on the topic to the first fight, right? After Superman saved Lois Lane in the cornfield, and he gets a feeling, Superman sense that his mother is in danger.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's visceral. That is Superman not holding back.
Yeah.
You know, when he comes back and he's like, "You threatened my mother." You know, he's just
constantly wailing on Zod, not giving him a chance to react or do anything. And I like how he just charged at Zod, even though his mother was standing at her house defenseless with these other 4 members of the Kryptonians, but they just charged away, and Zod's exposed to the exposure of the Earth's gravity, and he can't handle it, and so he's taken away. So perfect timing for a fight of the 2 notable named Kryptonians, at least from the original Superman movie.
Yeah.
Feora, and I don't know what the big guy's name, but because he's the big guy, he's the other minion.
I think it's Orm. I don't know if it's Orm or if it's Nord or something like that, off the top of my head. Bear with me.
He's always masked as well. I remember watching that in the movie theater, and I know he's the third guy of Zod's gang from the original Superman movie, because there's more than 3 in this movie.
Oh yeah, there's a whole crew of them in this film.
But obviously he's like the third main one, and he's notable by his height.
In the second film, Superman 2, Non. There you go. I had Orm and I had Nord, but it's Non. Yeah.
So Superman fights them 2, and he's always getting interruptions by the military to fight them, and
because the military at this point, they're not really sure whose side who's on. It's just kind of like they're in Smallville, they're destroying the place, just fight breaking out. So it's just like, just shoot anyone.
And there's the odd soldier saying, "What about the guy in blue? All targets." And then Superman is doing everything he can to save one every now and then, whether it's in the plane or in the helicopter. And he mostly fights Feora, but when the 2 of them are getting in on Superman, like after the IHOP and after the bank, and he's about to charge Feora, but in comes Non to grab him, just flings him to the ground and just try one step on the ground, trying to crush him.
What I love about it is because they are also Kryptonian, they have the same powers.
Yeah,
the only deficit they have on him is they're still in their battle suits. They haven't fully embraced the powers that they could have.
Yeah,
that doesn't even happen for Zod until much later on. The disadvantage then that Clark is at when he's fighting them is these people are all military strategists. They're all military born and bred for this role. So he doesn't have the experience of fighting. He's never had to fight anyone before because if he did, he would win instantly. He's never had to throw a punch before.
It's like me fighting a Garda.
Exactly. You've never had to do it before, so you're inexperienced. So that's why they're so level. And realistically then it's just a 2-on-1 fight. Of Kryptonians, people with incredible strength. And I like how, is it true that because Superman is so powerful and because the Kryptonians are so powerful, does them being in Earth's atmosphere and their gravity give them the strength to hone in their powers? It's multiple things. So it's the gravity within Earth is different than Krypton's. Which is why they can fly on Earth as opposed to Krypton. Yeah, and then as well as that, Krypton's sun was a red sun, whereas ours is a younger yellow sun, so it gives off more radiation and their cells can drink it up. So it's just like they're kind of more like plants. They get their like energy from the sun, like photosynthesis. So they're just able to drink it in, and so it's with all those kind of factors that gives them the powers, stuff like that, you know.
A lot of planning went into that. An awful lot of planning and prep went. Is that in the comics? Like, is it? That's all right. That's all right then. Well, all the more reason why it's great. But back to what I was saying about why I love supporting characters. In this middle of the fight, right? Superman's busy with none. In comes in Christopher Melanie. You know, he already had this little exchange when they were tossing Superman to the gang, and they want Lois Lane. And says, "You said you wanted a Kryptonian, not one of ours. Will I inform the general that you are not willing to comply?" And what does Christopher Melanie say? "I don't care what you tell him." And she gives him a stare, like...
Starts off this little rivalry between two supporting characters.
Yeah, and it comes back in this fight here when Feor has a moment to have a little fun, but neglectfully. She, like, there's just a fly buzzing around her. The way Zack Snyder shot her action scenes, it's like The Flash, but
there's no chance if you were to actually fight a Kryptonian.
And she just stands there while they're still shooting at her, and she takes a moment to turn and look, and then boom, 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 and then all like that, she brings the chopper down, says, "Call in the missile, blow them up." Like, he called in a missile, and he knew he's going to die. He whips up a little handy machine gun, pulls out his pistol, empties the clip, and she's just standing there. Like, she remembers him. She remembers that little exchange she had with him, and then he pulls out his knife, and we, the audience, know this isn't going to go the way you think, bud. And
he knows.
He knows, but he's going to try anyway.
He's going down with a fight.
And she whips out this blade that is very much Kryptonian. You don't know what it is. It's very unusual looking blade. And what does she say? One of my favourite moments in the movie, twice. The first time here, a good debt is its own reward. And he charges at her first, but Superman comes in and charges at her. I love that bit, and he gets away, and then after, she's knocked out by the missile, and I thought it was a little heartfelt moment that Non comes in to
take her away.
Take her away. It's like, it's not, they look out for each other, but it's also like, I thought it was a little sweet. You know, showing a vulnerability of her, who's so tactically strong, you know. And I like how Christopher Melanie, finally, this man is not our enemy.
Yeah, he's accepted him. Yeah, he knows. Yeah. And then later on, when Christopher Meloni gets to say the exact same line back to her when they're flying the ship into the world engine, when he says, "A good death is its own reward." And there's that moment where he just like dips the plane down,
the camera angle,
and she sees it, and she knows what's about to happen, and she tries to get out, and it's great. It, like you said there, with supporting characters, giving them their own arc and their own relationships. It's not just Superman and Zod. There are secondary,
and everyone had their part to play in that role, in that mission. Superman's in the Indian Ocean. The scientist Richard Schiff is trying to adjust the pod to turn the machine on, and I like. Oh, you know, I remember watching the scene. It was just last night I was watching it, and I was feeling the rush of the adrenaline that this is a necessity, this needs to happen, and it works in the favour. And in that moment, right, Superman has blown into the ship, and Zod's there after destroying the last copy of Jor-El.
Oh yeah, his the ship that he finds earlier on in the film. Yeah.
You know, we've talked about Zod already, and we know why he's doing these things. When he saw that Superman was about to destroy the ship, the urgency, the pleading he gave Clark. If you destroy the ship, you destroy Krypton.
And that's his only objective for living. That's why he was born, was to protect Krypton.
Yeah.
And then when Clark, he stops. Like, he's about to laser, and he stops, and his eyes go back to normal, and he thinks about it for a second. And when he gives that line, like, Krypton had its chance, and he destroys it. And yeah, the visceral like no out of Zod is just like, no, like it's brilliant. And it's so good.
And do you know what I liked as well? That when they first meet, Zod is happy. He's optimistic. He feels it's like, this is my nephew.
Yeah, he feels some kind of
From
a
me,
connection, to familiarity, like, oh, he's seeing Jor-El again. Almost,
and he feels like, because Feor says, you will address the general by, it's okay for her, we can do away with all
the formalities. Yeah.
Like, maybe Zod had an internal thought, maybe I could be a mentor to this kid.
And it's only later on.
It kind of breaks my heart a little.
Yeah, because it's only later on then when he's talking to one of the scientists and he's like, does he have to be alive for this to happen?
Yeah.
To extract it, because they find the codex within Clark himself. That's when he's like, no. And he's like, okay. Yeah, like then that's when he decides we can do this one way or the other. I no longer have to convince him to work with us. We can do this without him. It's fine.
And, well, I also just, I feel I get a few goosebumps with the perspective of Perry White leading his staff to safety.
I actually really like Perry White. This interpretation of him as well. You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. I'm glad you mentioned him again. But when Lois drops the story, and then Perry, who's been begging her to drop the story before this, he's like, whoa, why? What did you find? It's just that moment of, okay, I know you found something good because you don't drop this. And he's like, I don't know what your reasons are, but thank you, I appreciate it. But now he's like even more interested because she dropped it. I love that as a character, just like that he himself was a journalist and he knows now, she's got something good. But yeah, the fact that he is he's okay, everyone needs to get out of here now. Like, he's a very concerned boss, and he sticks with Jenny, her name is, even when she's stuck in the rubble. And yeah, you're right, I never even really considered that those three from the Daily Planet are surrogate for seeing the devastation of Metropolis from the human perspective, because
Lois Lane isn't enough because she's too in the know of what's going on.
No, she's in the mission. We're down, boots on the ground, and I'm glad that we get to see that from characters that we know. We're not just dropped in with all of a sudden some guy. It's people that we actually know, and seeing them affected by the destruction of the terraforming. And
after Superman does destroy the terraforming, I was actually concerned when I first watched this in the cinema, what if we don't get this? What if we don't get the final boss? This is so good, it feels cheap to refer it as the final boss, because that speech, look at this, now I have no people, my soul, that's what you've taken from me. And so he's done away his reason to live. So now he's just given himself another reason to live, and that's to kill every human on the planet.
In his mind now, Krypton is him. He sees Clark as human. You know, he's not Kryptonian. He isn't part of the effort to restore Krypton. So he is Kryptonian. And he just sees himself now as the only Kryptonian left. So he's going to fight Clark to the bitter end. There is no plan anymore. There is no restoring Krypton to anything. It's just him. He is the last Kryptonian. So,
and this fight, it's got to go. It's got to go the way we're thinking it, because Zod has just now repeatedly said, "I'm going to kill everyone here. This fight will end with either you dead or me dead." And he keeps taunting him, because how Superman is using all his abilities. And I'm a trained general. I've done this my whole life. I thought he was about to draw on telekinesis for a second, but no, he uses his laser vision, and he uses his flight.
What I love at the beginnings of that fight, he hasn't embraced it yet. Because he's still in the full armor.
Instead of him flying up the building, he's jumping.
Up it, he's crawling up it. But then when they get to the construction site, he sheds the armor. He just embraces this new yellow sun and has all the powers, and that's kind of where it clicks with Clark's like,
I can't stop him. No. I can't stop him by restraining him or knocking him out.
I can't convince him to change either way. It's going to come down to one thing, and I don't mind it, honestly. I know that there is that kind of thought of Superman doesn't kill people. I don't mind that this was the only solution.
To me, this is not Superman killing a human being. This is not Superman killing a Lex Luthor. This is Superman killing a monster, as defined throughout the movie. And we as the audience are informed a few times during this magnificent fight that he will not stop no matter what. And when he's got him in a headlock, And he's pleading with him, don't do this. Don't kill this family with the children. Zod says never. And for me, I think I remember at the time, I sunk. I was holding my breath for so long, and when he said that, I released. Because now, for me, that's me knowing one thing left to do.
Yeah, you know, there's only one inevitability now. It's going to be this.
And I still was shocked that he broke his neck. I was shocked because I still didn't expect it. And I still didn't know how he was going to end it. And when it happened, yeah, it was the right thing to do. And he wailed. Because not only did he just kill the last living member of his species, not only did he just kill a pre-optimistic potential familial mentor, he murdered a person. And I don't understand the hate around it.
Yeah, he's put in a situation where it's the only thing he can do. He's never going to stop.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem. I've never had a problem with it. I've never been in that school of thought where it's that he won't kill someone. I think if that kind of the whole superhero not killing someone, that's always kind of really been attributed to Batman.
Yeah.
But not so much Superman.
And so
he does what's necessary, does what's right.
And so we're coming to the closing of the movie, and he's having that little moment with his mother, who we didn't even mention was played by Diane Lane, talking about how, you know, we've already talked about the thoughts and what his father thought, and so the movie ends with him essentially where we are assuming Superman Legacy will start, getting a job at the Daily Planet and living the identity as Clark Kent while secretly as Superman. And the reason I said it is like that because the movie ends with the natural existence of Superman.
Yeah, that he exists in this world. Him and Clark Kent are two separate entities, whereas when it starts, it's very much there is one person.
Yeah, it's the origin story.
Yeah.
You know, it's whereas, you know, in James Gunn's Superman, it's going to be Superman in its natural existence where superheroes exist and whatnot. So I like how this movie ends, you know, I'm going to get a job where I can keep my ear to the ground and where I'm always aware of the danger. And, you know, cycle in the elevator and puts the glasses up, and, you know, we're reintroduced in the final scene of all the staff, and Lois, this is Clark Kent. And I just get a big smile on my face because we know what this is. And with Lois Lane going to Clark, welcome to the planet.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great final line, isn't it? Just twofold, you know. And welcome to the planet.
And the smile they give each other. It's just
that knowing, like, yeah.
Yeah. And I watched this movie last night content it can be a one and done. I am satisfied with it being a standalone movie, knowing we did not get a true Man of Steel sequel, because it's a very strong movie.
Standalone, yeah.
And I'm happy to look at it like that. But me and you next week won't be looking at it like that.
No, we are going to be next week discussing, we're going to be doing more than one movie. We're going to do a full DCEU retrospective. Something now I wanted to do since we talked about Aquaman last December. And yeah, we're going to be going through all of the films now, from Batman vs Superman right up until Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Stay tuned next week.
So make sure to listen in next week for that. That'll come out next Wednesday, like all of our episodes. Make sure that you're following us on all of our social media platforms. They're in the link down below. Yeah, just make sure that you're doing all the stuff you normally do.
Looking forward to it, David.
Talk to you later, Brent.
Welcome to the planet.